Centuries ago, a creature that had spewed from the fiery pits of hell, named Orlok, a fearsome vampire, a blood-sucking demon, terrorized many cities and villages with his evil ways and converting others too into that blood-sucking demons. However, one noble warrior, a fighter, a hunter of monsters, named Helsing, had forged a weapon that would weaken Orlok. With this, he confronted the creature and had slayed all his minions and those he converted. And then, finding that the creature was at his mercy, he felt a fate worse than death was more deserving. So, he bounded the creature to a cave and had an enchantress perform a curse, stating that he can never leave the cave unless someone who has his blood can shed the blood of another, then the curse would be broken. And Orlok waited in great patience until, centuries later, a prince, desperate to win a war and at the end of all hope, seeking supernatural as a last resort, he sought the help of this creature Orlok. Orlok made a deal with him, giving him his blood and telling him that if he can resist for so long, he would revert back to his human state and would also possess his powers in enough time to win his war, but was warned that the taste for his ancient blood would be great. The prince won his war, but also converted others to assist him and shedded the blood of others, and with that, Orlok's curse was broken. Orlok was freed, but then the prince sought this help from a descendant of the warrior Helsing, and together, putting their differences to one side, had faced Orlok and bounded him in a tomb and placed the tomb in a remote island in the Mediterranean where he would not be a threat to others. As the prince was already a vampire from his bloodline, he was bounded to Orlok, so could not kill his maker, which is why he turned to the help of the descendant of Helsing. This descendant made his oath, made his temporal alliance with the prince, and told him that next time they would meet, they would be enemies, and that if he does not finish the prince, his bloodline and descendants will attempt in completing the task. And that is when the prince last saw the Helsing descendant as an ally. And to this day, Orlok remains slumbering in his tomb until now.
Dracula stands in his living quarters in the Foundation. Looking at the woman, he then says, "So you are Tamara Renfield, and how am I to believe that?" The woman then says, "When you went missing in action, you left my great-grandfather Thomas Renfield a great fortune. He spent that fortune well and started a law firm. And he settled down, got married, started a family, told his stories of you to my grandfather, then he told the same to my father, and then to me. And now that the cat's out of the bag about supernatural monsters existing, I thought I would make myself known to you. The family bloodline is devoted to you and your servant. Also, I could be your lawyer. Now that monsters are out in the open, I feel we could be a law firm for them." "So, you are the great-granddaughter. If you don't believe me, taste some of my blood," as she holds out her wrist for Dracula. He bites into it and then sees everything, her family history and the bloodline. He then says, "So you are who you say. But why come to me now?" "Because a few weeks ago, there was an archaeological dig going on a small island in the Mediterranean. An island which had an ancient burial that had been found by these archaeologists. They've took this tomb to a museum in London, and I fear it contains something dangerous with the religious symbols on it. And according to legends, a prince that turned to darkness in a bid to win a war, and one of the early Van Helsings, put their differences aside and dealt with this evil. We're hoping you may know that. That is enough. I want you to go." Then his bride walks in saying, "Dracula, what's going on?" "Nothing. This woman here was going. You too, Griffin." Griffin then makes himself visible, saying, "How do you know I'm always here? Wait, I forget. You have heightened senses. You can hear my heartbeat, can't you?" "Yes. Out, all of you. Except for you, my love. You can stay." Then Dracula looks up at the moonlit sky, pouring himself some fresh blood and drinking from a whiskey glass. He then sits down and watches television until the sun rises. Then he gets a knock on the door. It's Dorian Gray. He then says, "Dracula, well, at least someone knocks." "Yes, well, I found it gentlemanlike. I know Griffin can be a bit of a pain in the arse with the whole invisibility thing. So was his great-grandfather and his grandfather and his mother. Still, I shouldn't be telling you about his family history and the hereditary invisible gene that he has from his great-grandfather." "I was hoping, with respect, if you could tell me, what was Tamara Renfield telling you? You know her. How did she even get in here?" "The Renfield firm has a good friendship with the Foundation, given that the founder, Thomas Renfield, was your familiar. So, I want you to tell me now, this tomb that was found on a small island in the Mediterranean, do you know what's in there? I could not kill him. You see, long ago, there was this man who wanted to live forever. Just before the ancient Greek societies began, this beggar, this servant, he renounced God as he felt God had abandoned him, striking a deal with a blood god. He became a creature believed to be one of the first vampires. He would go on to be corrupted by his power and look less human. You probably don't have any records on him, but his name was then in London at the archaeological museum where they were opening the tomb. Researchers found a body with sharp fangs in the center. Then, having a feel at the fangs in the center, so sharp it cut through the researcher's glove and pierced the skin, with only one drop of blood dropping into this rotted up, decaying corpse, or so believed. The blood slowly multiplied and started to spread through the body. Then Dracula and a Foundation SWAT team were preparing to head to this research facility. Agent Browning then asks Gray, so he said that this was yes, and we need to stop this thing, whatever it is that he says. What was its name? He said people called it many names. One name it was called was Nosferatu, but Dracula says his name is Count Orlok. Orlok? Isn't that just a myth? So I thought, but given the world we live in, it's not going to be that much surprising. Dracula and the Foundation SWAT team then head out to this museum where the tomb was taken. As for the researcher, after dressing their cut, they then go back to studying and looking on the computer for data, trying to get samples, thinking how old could this tomb and the body inside be. Then the body moves. Just a skeleton. It slowly gets up out of the tomb. Then the researcher turns around. She walks about and looks into the tomb and nothing is there. Next, she turns around and screams in horror at the carcass lurking behind her. A night shift security guard hears a scream and decides to investigate down a dark corridor in the museum. Then Showing his torch, he calls out, asking who's there. Then, knowing that he's not alone, he warns whoever it is that he's calling the police. Then, hearing a strange noise behind him, the noise of something inhuman, going, turning around in horror. He then screams. Then, not long after, Dracula and the SWAT team arrive, finding the bodies of the security guard and the researcher all drained from their blood. Dracula looking in horror. Then the whole SWAT team investigate, whilst Agent Browning goes up to Dracula and says, "What's the matter? You look on edge." "Let us hope that God will help us. Or at least you. You're dealing with ancient evil. Dracula, you know something that you're not telling us. Look here. These people have just awoken an ancient evil. He is the ancient blood. He is Orlok, Nosferatu. And he won't stop. What does he want? To feed? To live? To treat humans like cattle and slaves?" Then Ava Van Helsing shows up at the scene, saying, "Dracula, what's going on?" "We are in deep shit, Ava. I will explain." "Explain?" "Yes." Later, after Dracula has explained everything to Ava, she says, "So, hold on. You're telling me an ancient vampire has been awoken and is going to, what, slaughter humans?" "Yes, and make many more like himself if he can. He's not strong yet, so he may still be vulnerable, but if he feeds, he'll get stronger. We know he's already fed on 2 people. Who knows what happens when his body is regenerated." Then, in an alleyway, a youth is spray painting on a wall. Then he hears a sound, asking who's there. Then a sinister voice says, "You are alone." "Who's there?" "Look, just stop fucking around, okay?" said the youth. "You're alone. The wind speaks when you're alone." Then he says, the youth, "Show yourself. I want to see what you look like." "Very well." He then lets out a scream. Dracula then hears a scream not far away from the museum where the Foundation team are investigating. Dracula then hurries to the scene and still sees the creature feeding on the youth, sucking out all his blood. Then, revealing himself a half-decayed state, He then looks at Dracula and says, "Blood Terpis, you are still that same look that when I bestowed this on you." Then Ava catches up with him going, "What the fuck is that?" "So you formed an alliance again with the descendant. So how wonderful." Then Orlok jumps and flees off into the air. Then Ava asks, "What the hell, Dracula?" "Oh, we are in deep shit now. The more he kills, the more he transcends, and the more he does that, the stronger he becomes. We must stop him. You must stop him by any means." "Why can't you stop him? You're a vampire. Is it because he's older than you, he's stronger than you?" "Not just that. Dracula, what did he mean when he bestowed it on you? Aren't you going to tell me?" "Yes, Dracula," said Agent Browning as he appeared. "I think you know more than what you're saying, and I think you need to say it now." "Very well, then," said Dracula. "This is the vampire Orlok. Over thousands of years ago, well, I've already told you how he became a vampire. He was a fierce creature, but then a Roman warrior had come. He opposed Orlok, discovering all his weaknesses, working out how he works. He fought the creature after he slaughtered his entire village. He then took the creature far out from Rome. Finding he needed supernatural to fight this form of supernatural, he turned to a witch. He then threw this creature Orlok into a cave because he was dangerous, but the Roman warrior felt he was deserving of a fate worse than death. So he would let him starve, and he would have to feed on the blood of whatever creatures were in the cave. The witch put an everlasting spell on the cave, saying that she could keep it sustained forever, even if she should die. But also said that if he manages to spill blood, then the curse would be broken and he would be free. The Roman thought he would not be able to spill blood, but then the witch told him that if he can make one of his own, and that one was willing, if they should spill blood, they will be doing it on his behalf, and he will be free. Hundreds of years ago, I fought him. Me and your ancestor, Ava. And we made a pact, a short-lived one, just an agreement that would last until we had banished this mutual enemy. We then imprisoned him in a tomb this time and took him to a small island on the Mediterranean where he has been for centuries until now. Then Ava asks, "You said you can't kill him? Why is that?" she asked. Dracula then said, "Because he is my maker." As daylight approaches, Orlok finds a drug den and feeds on the blood of all the people inside, all the drug addicts, and feeds till his body fully regenerates. He then sees a long black cloak on one of the homeless people. He then takes it and puts it on, walking up to the window as he sees the sun rise. He puts his finger into the sunlight and his finger slightly burns. He then says, "I must rest, but I will be seeing you again, my child, Dracula."